What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video for pre-season 2021-22. In this one, I'm going through some of your drafts that you've sent to me on Twitter. So I asked for them. There was hundreds. I've picked 6 to narrow it down a little bit. Obviously, I can't get back to absolutely everyone, but with the 6 that I've chosen, it'll give me a chance to talk about a variety of players. And I will do a few more of these before the season starts, so don't panic too much. Do give a like if you enjoy it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Let's talk about the first team. So we'll start off with Matty H FPL. Like I said, big thanks to everyone that sent their tweets in. I've put the names up of everyone whose draft I used if you want to go and follow them. And the reason that I picked this one, like I said, I've tried to pick 6 different kind of drafts, not all the same as mine, of course. It's because it's got 3 premium midfielders in De Bruyne, Salah, Fernandes. Now, whether or not this is a good strategy really depends on your opinion. I don't mind it this season as much because of the cheap defenders, right? The 4.5 millions, the Fofanas, the Lampteys, the White, if he goes to Arsenal as well, they all look quite good. And perhaps for the start of the season, it's not a bad strategy, because what usually happens is a lot of people use their wildcard early, and I'm not saying you have to use it early, but because a lot of people do, you can maybe go a little bit more out there in terms of the way you set your team up, and it definitely is viable because of those cheaper defenders. I mean, even Sofal, let's say Ben White goes to Arsenal, you could swap Sofal to Ben White and get an extra 0.5 million out of this team. Obviously, there aren't too many other ways to get money, because Watkins down to a 6.5 or a 6 million forward, I just don't think is worth it. You've already got Tony as the cheap striker. There's not really too many others that stand out right now, at least at the time of recording this. The bench is a bit of a concern. Literally none of those players are either going to play or get you any points. Brandon Williams, the reason he's in so many drafts at the moment is because people are hoping that he goes away on loan to another Premier League club and becomes first choice. And if he does, he's not a bad bench option. But that is probably the big key here. There aren't too many players on this bench that you can rely on. The question is, does a De Bruyne downgrade, or Fernandes or Salah, whoever it is, but any of them down to like a Son or a Mahrez, like that's giving you like 2 or 3 million extra to spare. That's putting those cheap defenders on the bench, like Williams, up to another 4.5. Maybe you could do Obafemi up or whatever it might be, right? You probably wouldn't change Longstaff and Obafemi too much, but it gives you a bit more money for Williams, and it gives you a bit more money to put elsewhere. But I don't think overall that a 4 at the back strategy is a bad decision, right? I've done it before, not very often. Usually I start 3-4-3, but this season I do think 4 at the back is viable, at least for the first few weeks, and then we can see how players play and go from there. The one thing I do like about starting with 3 premium mids is you can then make a decision later about which one to get rid of. Like for me, if I start for Salah and Fernandes, but I've not got Kane, I've not got De Bruyne, how am I going to get to them? What if they bang and then I've got to pay extra money for them? With this, you start with them all and then you decide later on which one to jump off. And to be fair, when you've got those 3 players, it lets you move to any other player in the maximum of 2 moves. So obviously, if it's another midfielder, you can literally get anyone you want because these are the 3 most expensive. But if it's someone else in a different position, like a Kane, for example, or if you wanted to go and get Robertson in or Chilwell, whoever it might be in the back line, it only takes 2 moves. So I quite like it. I've got to be honest, I thought people were going to struggle to put 3 premiums in, but Matty seems to have done it. And without too much of a cost to the rest of the team. I still think, for my bench, I would prefer at least one playing player who's decent, right? So a 4.5 million defender is usually the easiest way to do that. So Foul down to a White and then maybe upgrade Williams, or perhaps just downgrade one of those midfielders. But if you're going to try and get all 3, this is probably the way to do it. This is a nice follow-on draft from the last one, because the last one had 3 premiums, midfielders. This one has 3 premiums, apart from it's got Kane instead of De Bruyne. And obviously then there's an extra couple of cheap midfielders in there as well. So I think, is 3 premiums viable? It probably is, but you've definitely, almost certainly, you've got to probably go without Trent or Robertson or someone like that. Given the likes of Shaw and Luka Dean at 5.5 million a good value, it's maybe not the worst strategy to start off. The one thing I would say dislike about this draft is there's probably too many cheap players, and the money's probably a little bit too much spread around the team. So Smith Rowe, Rafinha, Sarr, and Pukki are all under 6.5 million, which means because of the way the team's set up, you've got to bench one every week. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing to have to do. Like if you think about last season, for those that played, especially towards the maybe middle part and then towards the end of the season, a lot of us had 8 good attackers because of the price, but that's fine. At that point, you know who's decent, you know what the good fixtures are, and you've probably got a bit more money to spend. At the start of the season, personally, and again, this is just my opinion, you can disagree, I like having most of my money on the pitch. So instead of having a Pookie, I'd probably go for a 4.5 million forward, because you've still got Ayling to play or to come on if needs be. And then that money can go in somewhere in the midfield possibly to upgrade. Now, what I liked about the first draft, and maybe this is just something that's slightly better if you're going to go for the 3 premiums, I do think that 4 at the back possibly works a little bit better. So, for example, if you went Pookie down to a 4.5 and then Sarr down to a 4.5 as well, that would give you an extra 3 million to spend. So straight away, you could upgrade Nico Williams to Robertson, and you've still got Ayling on the bench, if I've done my maths right. So then you've got a Robertson, Shaw, Lamptey, Luca Dean backline, and you're playing 4-4-2, like the first draft. You could go 4-3-3 as well. And one of the reasons I like 4-3-3 is you get an extra forward in there. And I do think the value for like 7 to 8 million, that price bracket, is better for the forward line than the midfielders. But again, it's not really a draft I hate. I just think we don't really know how many minutes Smith Rowe is going to get and where he's going to play in that Arsenal team. With Sarr, he did really well last time he was in the Premier League. How well are Watford going to start off? How well is he going to do? And the same with Pookie as well. I mean, Pookie was in my players to avoid just because of the rough fixtures that they have to start. So I don't mind it. The 3 premiums in there is great. Gives you loads of good captaincy options. I just think there's potentially better ways to spread the funds around midfield. So we haven't seen too many 3-5-2 drafts. So this is a good one to talk about. Straight away, I do think there's a couple of players where minutes are potentially going to be an issue. Now, to be fair, both of these players were in my value players video. And obviously, we're still quite a way out from the season starting. But Jota is all going to be down to minutes, and so is Rodrigo. I think Rodrigo in particular, I couldn't be sure, and I'm not sure Leeds fans would be either, but let me know in the comments below if I'm completely wrong on this. Like, we saw Rodrigo sometimes play as a 9, we saw him play as like almost like a second striker, a number 10, sometimes as like an advanced 8 in that Leeds team as well. But how often is he going to get in? Right? I can't imagine he goes through this season the same way he did last year, but we just don't know. So that would be a slight worry. What I will say is, if he gets regular minutes, I do think for 6.5 million, he could be better than Tony, who everyone else seems to be going for. So I don't hate the pick. And the same thing with Jota. He's great. He will get minutes. Just how many minutes will he get? That's the key problem there. But Liverpool's fixtures are so good to start off that I don't mind starting with him. The news today is the Man City are preparing, and by the way, when I say news today, this video won't go out for a few more days yet, but Man City are preparing a bid for Jack Grealish. If he goes, Buendia then becomes kind of the chief creator, I suppose, in that Villa team. Traore's not that bad, by the way, for 6 million, but Buendia's 6.5 million. If Grealish leaves, we saw how many chances he's created for Norwich. Even in that season when Norwich were in the league with Buendia, he was right up there in terms of chances created. So Watkins finishing off those chances is still decent. So I like the Buendia pick. I think the first 3 fixtures for Villa are decent. You just got to maybe think about after that what you do with that position. And then Rafinha is decent too. And then up front, obviously, I do like Antonio. That could be Watkins, could be Wilson, whoever it might be. I just wonder, again, is there a way to get more? Like, minutes are important. Okay? So, for example, Jota down to a 4.5. You could bring Tony in instead. That will give you another million to spend. Then Rodrigo could go up to like a Watkins or something like that. I know that is just making it a bit more templated like everybody else's drafts. But you're getting rid of 2 players whose minutes are potentially a concern in Jota and Rodrigo, and bringing in 2 players where minutes just aren't a concern. Other ways to get money out of this team. Chilwell could be down to a 4.5 or a Luca Dean. I don't hate starting with Chilwell, right? I keep thinking about this a lot. Like, if I just bring up the fixtures on my other screen, Palace is good, okay? That's clean sheet for sure. Then it's Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs and Man City in the first 6. They're going to be tough. I know how good Chelsea are defensively. And if he does really well, then people will start buying him and his price will go up. You already own him ahead of some really good fixtures from kind of game week 7 onwards. So I don't hate the pick, but I do think if you're someone that's maybe likely to wildcard early or get cold feet when a player doesn't get returns, there is a chance for Chelsea players to struggle in the opening 6 matches. They do not have good fixtures, but even if they were slightly kinder, I'd be all over Chilwell. I think 6 million for him is really cheap. I think in that Chelsea team, with how attacking he can be, with how much more often he was in the team than Alonso towards the end of the season, and how good they are defensively, for 6 million, I think he can match the likes of Robertson and Trent, who are more expensive. So I do really like him. I just don't know about starting with him. But overall, good side. I don't think you have to make it a full template, but I do think with the Jota Rodrigo money, you can probably spread it around a little bit better and just get some more guaranteed minutes, basically. Okay, so Fantasy Silver. I nearly didn't use this because the bench has not been done properly. Surely you play Diaz over Brandon Williams, even if he goes somewhere, just how good Man City's defence is. But fair enough, maybe you wouldn't. One thing this team has got is still got 2 premiums in Salah and Fernandes, but doesn't have a Liverpool defender. In fact, no defender over Diaz at 6 million. No other defender is more expensive than that. So what this is allowing them to do in this draft is, one, to get Cavani, 8.5 million up front, still have Calvert-Lewin and have Tony as well, but also to have a bit of a rotation in midfield. So Rafinha on the bench for the tough Man United game before ahead of pretty good fixtures, okay? Leeds fixtures aren't brilliant, but they're not that bad either. So I don't hate that. I think if you're going to get Cavani, this is probably the good time to do it, right? There's 2 reasons. Let me just bring them up here. One is the fixtures. So Leeds, Southampton, Wolves, Newcastle, West Ham, Villa. That's how Man United start off. But also, Europe won't have started at that point. So there's like a week, roughly, sometimes it's 6 days, sometimes it's 7, 8, whatever. There's a week between games at the start of the season. That's good for Cavani. We know that when the matches start piling up, when it's weekend, midweek, he's going to start seeing his minutes managed. So I don't mind that as a differential. His numbers were great last year. If he can get like 80 to 90 minutes per match in the first few game weeks, that could be huge, right? Because his numbers were right up there with some of the best in the league last year. So he's still got it, okay? But he is obviously another year older. But he should start. I don't see why he wouldn't, right? That also then lets you put Rafinha on the bench. Again, my question would be, if you downgraded a Souček or a Sarr, who I think are both 6 million, down to a 4.5, that gives you 1.5 to spend elsewhere. So could the defence be improved? So instead of Manquillo and Williams, maybe get at least one more 4.5 million defender in there. Could you upgrade Tony to a 7.58? If you think that's an upgrade, maybe you don't. It's just how I personally want to play. I don't like having players that are like 6.5 million on my bench, especially at the start of the season. I think it's the most difficult time to do it because money is so tight. We haven't made any money. We don't necessarily know who all the really cheap superstars are just yet. There's always someone that emerges that is crazy cheap. But overall, I don't hate it. I do think you're going to want, like, even if Brandon Williams goes to another Premier League club, and obviously it's hard to talk about right now because we just don't know if or when that will happen and who it will be, will he be absolutely guaranteed minutes every week? And if he isn't, he's not necessarily that much better than any other 4 million defender. So I think I would want at least 4.5 on there. And again, personal preference, I would probably spread the money around a little bit better. Or not better, more. I don't want to say better because that's just my opinion. But Sarr or Souček down to a 4.5, I think you can do good things with that. But it does just show if you haven't got a Liverpool defender, and bear in mind the value of the rest of the defenders, you can do some cool things like have 2 premiums and Cavani and Calvert-Lewin. I don't think too many will start with Cavani. He's about 15% owned at the time recording, but that's pretty low for a Man United player with such good fixtures, especially if Sancho comes. So this squad's in here because it's, unlike the rest, I would say, mostly, it's a balanced squad, right? That's a word we use in FPL a lot. I want a balanced squad, a balanced team ahead of game week 1. Mostly what I perceive that to mean is you just want your money spread nicely around the team, right? So you haven't got like 3 premiums but then some really cheap options. You got money spread in all different positions. So you got Robertson in defence, the most expensive defender there in this team. You still got a premium in Salah, but in the front line you got no one less than 7.5 million. So Iheanacho, good pick. I think he's a great value pick if Leicester stay to 2 up front. Cavani I've already spoken about, and I really like Calvert-Lewin. I think this is the first draft where Calvert-Lewin's been in. I know he's 8 million. So he's pricey, but I do think with those fixtures Everton have got, let's wait and see what happens with the new manager, formations and stuff like that. But with his numbers, like his underlying numbers, expected goals per 90 and stuff like that, he's going to play every game, you would think. With the fixtures, I really like him. The one thing you get with not getting a second premium is you do get that better spread of funds in midfield. So rather than having like a Sarr and a Smith Rowe, I think, which we saw earlier, plus maybe a Souček, who, to be honest, I don't really think Souček's necessarily worth 6 million. Though he did score 10 goals from like 9 XG last year, so it's not that bad. But you get like Mahrez, so you cover Man City for only 9 million. Then you get to also have someone in the 8 million price bracket, which is Grealish, and obviously you get your Rafinha in there as well. So I do really like it. Obviously, there's caveats like Mahrez. Will he still be completely nailed on? I mean, if Man City are going to buy Grealish, that probably makes Grealish a worse option. And then until they sell players, they've got Grealish and Sterling and Foden and Mahrez and Torres. So a lot of players for those wider positions. That's the only thing that worries me about Mahrez. But from what we know, he should be on penalties. And I think a lot of people, including myself, have probably overlooked that fact while they've been making drafts. The one thing about Grealish's price point, it's a bit awkward, that 8 million. There's not too many other players around that price. You either go up a little bit or you come down a little bit. It's not necessarily a bad thing because you can get anyone that's 8 million or less. But obviously keep an eye on the Man City thing, because if he goes there, I do think he becomes a worse option. Also, I think by maybe making a downgrade somewhere, you could upgrade Robertson to Trent. I do think Trent Alexander-Arnold is the more attacking. I know at times we have seen Robertson be the better option, but overall, I do think it's Trent. And also, if you start with Trent, you can literally downgrade to anyone you want. With Robertson, if you needed to go up to Trent Alexander-Arnold, you'd have to find that 0.5 million. So I really like this team. I think in terms of balance, it looks good. Maybe you could tweak certain players like Grealish down to a 7 or a 7.5. Maybe make that Robertson upgrade. But again, some core players, solid players. I really like it. There we go. That is it for this one. If you have enjoyed it, do give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Plenty more content to come this pre-season. If I didn't use your draft, I'm sorry. There was literally hundreds. Please don't now flood my inbox with rate my teams and drafts, because I'll be honest, I don't really look at them because everyone's got similar teams and they've got similar questions. It's just easier to answer those questions on a video where I can get it to thousands of people rather than just one reply to an individual person. So I will do some more of these. I usually get the teams from Twitter, so make sure you're following me. There's links in the description below to that. And obviously, like I said, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back tomorrow with some more videos.